Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Strategy Game Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Shippey. And today we have a second Lauren Cotton, my very good friend and founder of Cotton Cruise. Lauren, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm
I
always
love having
encouraged by
you.
all the work you do.
Oh, I love it. Well, Lauren was my first student in the strategy masterclass. So big shout out back in the day. That feels like forever ago. And she is in her 11th year of this business, Cotton Cruise. So,
Hmm.
Lauren, tell us a little bit about yourself, your story, like the winding road of how you got here, because we always know as an entrepreneur, it's a winding road. So, how did
Yeah.
it happen for you?
I started out my senior year at Palm Beach Atlantic University with an internship at Rybovich Shipyard. I was working for the family that I bought the shipyard, and they offered me an internship in marketing. So I went there my senior year and stayed there another 6 years. Growing up on the water, I always knew that I loved boats and like anything water related. So it felt like a good fit. I'd worked for the family 9 years. After 6 years in the shipyard, another company worth having yachts was starting up and had brought me over to help them start that. I was with them about 2.5 years, and then 11 years ago started this business. So Cotton Cruise does staffing for yachts and estates, and through working in the marine industry, I always had friends that were either captains, owners, and then also crew. So naturally, I was like networking and putting people together. And
Yeah.
then a number of years ago, someone said, "Do you realize that's a business?" And when I put the numbers together, I'm like, "What the heck am I doing?" So I jumped in and within 2 weeks sent my first invoice, which is a blessing. I know people start businesses and don't always have a demand
Yeah.
right off the start. So it was nice that I started with a demand and then obviously being able to carry it through 11 years now.
So you almost kind of stumbled upon it. Like you almost,
Right.
okay, somebody's like, hey,
A
did you
light bulb
know this
moment
is
went
a
off and I
thing?
was like,
Like he,
this is a business. And I'm like, wait,
so
let
you
me
were
put these
naturally
numbers together here.
a connector. So you were just
Right.
connecting people because that's like what you do, and you were meeting people
Yes.
and like probably like shoving all that knowledge away in your brain, right? Those contacts. And then it was that
Right.
light bulb moment where someone said, hey, did you know this could be a business? I love stuff like that because I feel like that always happens in entrepreneurs over and over again throughout their journey, where they'll have
Yes.
those light bulb moments of like, oh, okay, now I can
Like,
go start,
wait.
you know,
Yes.
it's just
And someone told me early on, like, and I think it's actually my dad, who's probably the ultimate entrepreneur and networker. Keep a list. So I always had like an Excel list running of people I met with like names and contacts
yeah.
from like graduating college on. And so, that really helped me in my business. I never knew what I was going to do with that list, like out of college, even 5, 10 years later. Because I didn't start my business till close to 30, which just aged myself. But I always kept a list of contacts, thanks to my dad's wisdom, and was able to leverage that list starting a company.
Okay, so that's another thing. Love that. That's another lesson. Like, and I think this is a theme throughout my journey too. Is like sometimes you'll start things or you'll be keeping things and you don't know why. And when
Right.
it becomes apparent, it can even be years later. So
Yes.
one of the disciplines of being an entrepreneur, I feel like, is to catch those things and just
Hmm.
like take them in. Because if you hadn't applied that wisdom, like wisdom can be shared with you, but if it's not applied, it falls flat.
Right.
Like you took it in, from your dad and then applied it, and then you knew when to use it. So
Hmm.
great like lesson there to those listening in. Like make sure
And
you
you're right about applying it because, like, we talk about like what important traits carried me through, and yeah, I can list all these traits, but if people don't put stuff into action, it really doesn't mean anything.
yeah, yeah, that's really true.
So
Well, let's talk about that. Like you're knowing yourself, like your personality and how you operate, like your strengths. What do you think has really carried you through the last 11 years as you kind of look back over the journey so far?
yeah, I wrote like 4 points down. Hopefully that's okay.
Yeah,
It
let's do it.
wasn't
Here's some
one.
goals. Yeah, that's great.
Um, I mean, obviously, not obviously, but faith, having a moral compass in business is important, no matter what faith you are, but
Yeah.
honesty, having a moral compass
Being genuine and
is
authentic and
right is really key. Next is hard work. Sometimes my husband and I laugh because, people think they work hard at a 40-hour work week, and we used to laugh. That's like half
nothing.
a work week. Um, so hard work, I think a lot of people are afraid to put in 12-hour days, day after day, month after month. And so the hard work, also passion, in which you mentioned, being genuine. If you're able to do something you're passionate about, I think it makes you genuine in what you're doing, because you really love it, so you're not coming across salesy because you're actually doing something you love.
So true.
Which I know a lot of people, people work and they don't always do what they love. So it's a tough match. I've been very blessed to do what I love. I love helping people. So when I find people jobs, it's really fulfilling for me. And then consistency, like we just talked about, like some of these practices, people aren't consistent, and it's, being consistent year after year, over and over again. Whether that's in personal routines, work habits, branding, marketing, which you can get into all that stuff.
Yeah.
But being consistent across all fronts.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the four for me were hard work, faith, passion, and consistency.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I've watched you do that over the last 11 years. Like, I think especially since your business was built on relationships. And so if
Mhm.
people couldn't trust you or sense that you're genuine, then they don't want to engage with you. And ultimately,
Right.
that's what we talk about all the time. That's how
Mhm.
strategies are created. That's like, that forms the base in my mind of like any kind of marketing you're going to do if you don't have that
Right.
authenticity. And then the passion, it's so true. I mean, I was just writing about this the other day a little bit, like it really kind of hit me when you're operating outside of your lane or like where you're really
Mhm.
strong, you're not going to be almost as authentic or genuine in what you're doing, not because you're trying to deceive people necessarily, but just because
Right.
you're like running in your lane, in your strength.
Mhm.
And so I was really thinking about that for myself and like what is my narrower lane and how do I stay focused there?
Right,
Because
because as an entrepreneur, you get deals and options and like things come across, and I always
yeah,
like find myself like going back to like, okay, what am I really good at? What do I know
yes,
what to do? And like you're saying, like stay in your lane.
yeah,
Early on, someone also told me, to do one thing and do it really well.
yeah,
And that's kind of just what I've focused on these 11 years. We've got off into some other different businesses, but this is a core business for us.
yeah. That's so good. It's just that reset, that self-awareness to have that reset when you need it to
Hmm.
like, come back to center,
Hmm.
over and over again.
Right.
So as you look back on the history of Cotton Cruise, what have some of your greatest challenges been, triumphs?
Yeah, I mean, originally, like I always said, starting a business in like a male dominated industry, now I don't even feel that because I've been around the
Yeah,
marine industry since 2006. Originally, that was probably a big thing starting out. And then, I mean, I guess like telling people I've been in business 11 years or surviving COVID, um, navigating ebbs and flows of business. COVID was a challenge for people as well. Um, and I don't know, I feel like the guys in our industry are always impressed that I'm still around after all this time. So
you're still here.
still here, still doing it.
Yeah.
So um, yeah.
And then triumphs, like your wins, as you look back, where do you feel like you've been able to really have that success? And that doesn't even have to mean like, oh, we got this award. That can mean like, what are you
Right.
like proud of?
That's like I always just like have my head down working, and then when I get out in the public or do a boat show, an event, something like that, and like people remind me of like where I started in the shipyard, or They're like, oh, you're like the biggest name out there or something like that. I'm like caught off guard, like, oh my God.
Amazing. You're like, I didn't even know that. That's
Yeah.
great. I'm just
I
looking
was
up
like,
for a minute to realize.
yeah, you just made my day. Thank you.
That is so great. I love that. And that's like, I feel like that's that kind of authority that's established only over time. Like it's only
Right.
over, you said one of your core traits was consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you keep showing up, I found that to be
Right.
true too. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and you're authentic and you're genuine in what you do. That just carries the most weight above anything, above like anything else you could do. So
Right.
that's really awesome. What have you learned through time over the years that you would tell others earlier in their journey?
Yeah, for people starting out, I mean, owning a business isn't for the faint of heart. I think most people probably know that going into it. Dealing with customers, employees, taxes, insurance, like it's overwhelming. I think it's important to find a mentor that's older than you, that has some like business knowledge, that's been through some ups and downs that you could rely on and go back and forth with. Especially, someone if they lived through '08 and some of, these economy change. Now COVID will be a thing, right?
Yeah.
So someone that's, business, that's wise in business. And then obviously to trust your gut. I feel like I always tell people this when they interview, either people hiring or going for jobs, to really trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
So
And
true.
that's true for so many things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, I always like in the beginning and even now, just like stay humble, keep expenses low, and put the time in.
Put the time in. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's
Put
so
the time
good.
in.
Such good lessons. Put the time in and it pays off, right? This,
Yes.
my husband always says like the power of compounding, right? I mean, he's in finance, so
Yes.
in terms of numbers, and I'm thinking in terms of like strategy and how that works in a business, but
Right.
it's just keep showing up. So that's incredible.
Mhm.
Thank you, Lauren. Can you tell everybody where they can find you? And I'll put
Yes.
in the show notes.
Um, Online, we're at www.cottoncruise.com. That's COTTONCREWS.com. On Instagram, we're Cotton Cruise. LinkedIn, we're on Cotton Cruise. On Facebook, Cotton Cruise. I think that's
Okay.
all our things.
Easy to remember. Okay, that's awesome.
Yes.
Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks everybody for
Yes.
listening in.